have to play the role of this heavy seriousness. There's a great deal of joy in the world that can come in little pieces and in unexpected ways. And to me, magic is that twinkle of joy and possibility that breaks through our stories that create the world as if the world is a static place. The world is much fuller of possibility than we give it credit for. And magic just opens the door to the possibility that already exists.
Do you think that the spirit is behind magic? The individual spirit is really kind of the animator of the magic, or the vehicle by which the magic comes through? Or how do you relate the two? Or how do you think about the two?
Well, in a way, magic is kind of the result of a conspiracy, and the conspiracy is the uncovering of conspiracy. You know, in The Wizard of Oz, when pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, you know, and you unveil this tremendous, scary force, and it's someone working a bunch of levers. Well, what magic does is it unveils the deep seriousness with which we all take each other, and in which we take everything. And it says, look, what is all this about? What is it for? I think our founders had it right. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness is a very profound notion that we tend to take rather superficially. It's as if life intends for us to have joy so much, and that's something children understand. So I think that the spirit of reality is a spirit of joy and of seeing how things connect, and how astonishing it is that doors open when you most need them to open, and that people come to help when you most need them to help. That the world is set up that way if we only could see it.
In the United States of America, would you not agree with me that this is a culture that prides itself deeply on making things happen, vis-a-vis the will?
Oh, yes.
And therefore, on one hand, that's responsible for many of the wonderful things that have been created and generated from here. And on the flip side, it has also been like the bane. One of the big problems with letting magic in, letting things come through, trusting that doors will open. It's a strange paradox, if you will. We're the make-it-happen country, and yet there's other divine principles and forces at work which work with us and do a lot of the work for us. I mean, it's in a lot of religions and traditions, and yet this is the country that prides itself on willing everything into being. How do you see that opposite of the situation that we're in right now?
Well, I think and I love this about our country, we are the make-it-happen country. I think the issue is, what is the it that we're making happen? And what have we looked carefully and listened to people about what wants to happen, what wants to emerge? We sometimes get an idea in our head, or we don't really think about it very much, of what we want to make happen, without seeing the new thing that might want to emerge, which is quite different from what we want to make happen. So you're right to use the word will, because it has to do with the education of the will. We've recently had a book about the education of the emotions, emotional intelligence. We know about the education of the mind. We don't know that much about the education of the will. And that's something to be thought about very deeply, because there are different levels of will. There's the puny, unfree will. There is a larger will that you can be connected to with your will. There's all kinds of things about the will that we don't think about. We just willfully go out and impose an unthinking pattern on other things occurring in the world.
I sometimes see it as the central nervous system of most of the suffering of the world.
Yes, but you know, when you look at life, the way life is set up, even the human body, so many things operate in patterns of light and dark, and left hand, right hand, and left foot and right foot, and heat and cold, and all the systems have to do with opposites dancing together. It's not ever just the imposition of one thing. We sleep and we wake, we breathe in and breathe out. So the trouble with imposing will is that it tends to go just in one direction, and the stronger you impose your will, the less you are likely to be listening.
That's very powerful. You did some work with Dee Hock, the founder of Visa. It's a chaotic organization.
Yes.
On chaos and how he built Visa. And it sounds like it's appropriate to ask you about your take on what is it to found something in an organism based on chaos and how that could alter the way we experience our will and use our will.
Well, mostly I talked with Dee while he was writing his book. He was articulating what it was that happened when he helped to found Visa. And he coined the term chaotic because he wanted to point out that chaos theory and chaos are not just one and the same thing. His great insight about Visa was a biological one, and that is that you can have organisms of incredible complexity emerge from very simple iterations of something if you don't impose a kind of centralized control. So if you let all the countries in the world and all the little units in the world run their own Visa programs, if you don't try to impose a CEO, if you say, where are the headquarters of Visa, which is the largest company in the world in terms of profits that it makes, where are the company headquarters? There are no headquarters.
There's no corporate office.
No. It's a completely, you could say, viral organization. It stretches out all over, and the units are independent. What they do have is a kind of constitution, that is a set of rules that everyone follows. But that's not the same as a central commander imposing his will. It's coming together and saying, here's what we agree to do, and then people do it on their own. So this is a very different paradigm for operating together in the world, and to me offers some hope for imagining a kind of system of global governance, not government, but governance, which is completely federated and not to do with any one entity imposing its will on the rest of us.
So part of the organism of consciousness in such a constitution would have to lay down on a foundational level the seed of trust.
Yes.
The way Dr. Muhammad Yunus founded the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh for 25 years, and it's been profitable.
That's right. And his great insight had to do with how to build a structure of trust. It's not enough simply to trust, because then the weakest link lets down the whole edifice. But if you build a structure that rewards trust, in which trust is a key component, you can build something both very powerful and very slender in its resources. If you think, he didn't start off with billions of dollars to loan. He started off in a very small way.
How does that translate in the real world? Do you actually know when you say he started in a small way, meaning an office and a phone? I mean, are we talking at that level?
Yes, or even just your own ideas. I mean, what you're starting on the web with this rainmaking program, you have no idea what person listening to it or somehow coming in contact with it will be inspired to do. You just have no idea.
I'm scared to know.
Well,
I mean, truthfully, in my heart, I want a new station for the world.
Right.
That's what I desire so strongly. I want something that transmits a higher vibration to the world so the world can hear all the wonderful, incredible, invigorating news, information, and stories that I'm not saying that there aren't stations that aren't attempting to do that or aren't doing that, but I know that on a human level we're capable of so much better, so much better. And kids are in front of television sets and families are, and we're mired in it, and we're really hypnotized by what we're hearing.
Yeah, but you can hang out with different people and with different stories. You can decide not to watch the evening news one night. I think it's responsible to know what the news is, but actually you can get the news very quickly and then read a Rumi poem instead. And you'll be transported to a place, given the same 20 minutes that you have in the day. You can understand the news about 5 or 6 minutes, and then you can read one news story in depth so that you understand things the news can't say just by giving you a headline. And then you can read a poem or listen to music, and you'll be in touch with a reality that makes better sense of the news than some of the news stories do.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to open up the call-in lines for those of you who would like to introduce yourself to Betty Sue Flowers for the next 15 to 18 minutes.